The Forgotten Streets. The evening sun dipped low over the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of orange and crimson. In the small town of Uncaranza, where dust always clung to your sandals and laughter often carried from one courtyard to another, the markets were beginning to close. Women wrapped in bright Ankara cloth packed away roasted plantains, yam, and cassava leaves. Children tugged at their mothers' wrappers, hungry and tired. But not far from the chatter of the market, near the old clay well at the edge of the town, a young woman named Amina Diallo knelt with a clay pot balanced against her knee. Amina was known in the town, though not in the way her stepfamily wanted. While her stepmother Mariam and stepsister Safia flaunted gold bangles and silk wraps, Amina often walked barefoot, her dress simple, her headscarf plain. She had little wealth, little comfort, and little voice in her own home, but what she did have was something no one could strip from her, a heart that beat for others. That day, after fetching water, she had gone straight to the small shelter she often volunteered at. It was nothing more than a crumbling one-room building beside the old mosque, but to the hungry, it was a lifeline. Amina spent her evenings there, ladling bowls of spicy groundnut soup into chipped calabashes, handing out bread to barefoot children, whispering kind words to tired old men who had long been forgotten by their families. Her hands moved quickly, but her heart was heavy. For weeks, her stepmother's insults had grown sharper. "Why waste yourself feeding dogs?" Mariam had said that morning, her voice dripping with disdain. "Do you think charity will give you a husband? Do you think men want a woman who stinks of poverty?" Safia, beautiful in her own right but crueler than her mother, had only laughed, adding, "She should marry one of the beggars she loves so much." Amina had swallowed her pain as she always did. Her father was long dead, his grave shaded by a lonely baobab tree, and with him had gone her only shield. Since then, Mariam had treated her as little more than a servant. Still, Amina endured. She told herself that kindness was never wasted, that her father's spirit watched her and smiled when she gave to others. But that evening, fate brought her a test she never expected. The moon was rising when she finally left the shelter. Her, hands smelling of smoke and onions, her dress stained with soup. The streets were quieter now, the merchants gone, the night insects singing in chorus. As she passed through a narrow alley by the riverside, she saw a figure slumped against the wall. At first, she thought it was another drunkard, someone who had stumbled after too much palm wine. But when she drew closer, her breath caught. It was a man. His body leaned heavily against the mud wall, his face pale under the dim glow of a broken street lamp. His clothes were torn and filthy, but his skin was not the skin of a man who had always lived on the street. His hands, though calloused now, still bore the faint marks of rings long gone. His posture, even in weakness, carried a strange nobility, as though he had once stood tall and proud. Amina's heart raced. She knelt beside him, gently shaking his shoulder. "Sir? Can you hear me?" His eyes fluttered open. They were dark, deep, and filled with pain. His lips cracked as he whispered a single word. "Help!" Then his body went limp. Panic surged through Amina. She pressed her fingers to his neck. His pulse was faint, but it was there. He was alive, but only barely. She looked up and down. The street. People passed by, their eyes sliding away the moment they saw. Amina shouted for help. "Please, someone help me!" A woman carrying baskets quickened her steps. Two young men glanced over, then laughed and turned away. No one stopped. The world kept moving, and the man in her arms was nothing more than invisible. Tears pricked her eyes. "No," she whispered fiercely. "I won't let you die here." With strength she did not know she had, she hooked her arms under his shoulders and dragged him inch by inch toward the road. His body was heavy, his breathing ragged, but she refused to stop. Sweat soaked her dress. Her knees scraped against the stones. But finally, a taxi pulled up, its headlights cutting through the night. The driver rolled down his window, frowning. "Sister, what are you doing?" "He needs a hospital," Amina cried. "Please take us." The driver hesitated, muttering about blood and sickness, but one look at her desperate face made him sigh. "Fine, fine, get in." With great effort, Amina managed to heave the stranger into the back seat. Then, climbed in beside him, cradling his head in her lap as the car sped off toward the clinic. The clinic smelled of disinfectant and despair. The waiting room was dim, the paint peeling from the walls. Nurses barely glanced up as Amina stumbled in with the man. She cried out, her voice breaking. "He's dying! Please help him!" Two orderlies lifted him onto a stretcher and wheeled him toward the back. Amina followed, her chest tight with fear. But in the sterile hallway, her hope shattered. The doctor, a tall man with cold eyes, stopped her. "No ID, no insurance, no family. We cannot operate." Amina's knees nearly gave way. "But he will die." The doctor folded his arms. "That is not my concern. Without payment, nothing can be done." Her heart pounded. She had no money, not even enough for her own school fees. She pressed her palms together, begging, "I will work. I will clean. I will do anything. Please, just don't let him die." The doctor's lips curved into a smirk that chilled her blood. He leaned close, his voice low and cruel. "There is another way." Amina froze. Her breath caught in her throat. The way his eyes lingered on her told her exactly what he meant. Her stomach turned, bile rising in her throat. Her innocence, the one piece of dignity she had left, was what he demanded. She staggered back, shaking her head. "No, I can't." But through the doors she could hear the faint beeping of machines, the shallow breath of the man she had dragged from the dirt. If she refused, he would die. If she agreed, she would lose a part of herself she could never reclaim. Tears blurred her vision. She thought of her father's grave, of his words that kindness was never weakness. She thought of the stranger's eyes when he whispered help. She thought of how the world had walked past, leaving him to die, while only she had stopped. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "God, what am I supposed to do?" And then, with her heart breaking, she gave her answer. Hours later, the red light above the operating room flickered off. The doctor stepped out, peeling off his gloves, his face as expressionless as stone. "He'll live," he said flatly. Relief flooded Amina, but it was poisoned by the weight of what she had done. She sank to the floor, her body trembling, tears falling silently. She had saved a life, yes, but at a cost that burned her soul. When she finally returned home, Mariam was waiting in the doorway, her silk robe shining under the lamplight. Her arms were crossed, her eyes sharp. "Where have you been, girl?" she demanded. "Sneaking around with trash again? While my daughter does all the work?" "I was at the hospital," Amina whispered, her voice hoarse. "Don't lie to me," Mariam snapped. "No man will ever want a girl who disappears at night." From the staircase, Idris leaned against the railing, his eyes glinting with mockery. Safiya giggled beside him, smirking down at Amina like a queen sneering at a servant. Amina bowed her head, swallowing her pain in silence. None of them would ever know. None of them would ever understand what she had given up tonight. She had lost everything, and yet gained nothing, except the fragile truth that a stranger still breathed because of her. As she lay on her thin mattress, that night, staring at the cracked ceiling, she whispered into the darkness, "May your life be worth the price I paid." And somewhere in the hospital, the man she saved slept peacefully, unaware of the sacrifice that had bound their lives together forever. The man who lived, the morning sun crept through the cracks of Amina's small window, spilling golden light over her face. She had hardly slept. All night, memories of the clinic gnawed at her heart. The doctor's cruel smirk, the weight of her choice, and the faint sound of Kweku's breathing as machines kept him alive. She had whispered her prayer before dawn. Let him live. If nothing else, let him live. When she rose, her body felt heavy, but she wrapped her faded blue scarf and went to the well as she always did. The village bustled with life. Women laughed loudly as they pounded fufu. Traders shouted prices of tomatoes and smoked fish, and goats bleated as they trotted freely between stalls. But as Amina walked past, she felt eyes follow her. Whispers stirred. There goes the girl who disappears at night, one woman muttered. Hey, who knows what she's doing? Her stepmother says she sneaks out to shame the family, another replied. Maybe she has a lover in the city? Someone else laughed. Amina lowered her gaze, pretending not to hear. Her cheeks burned, but her feet did not stop. She carried the pot on her head with steady grace, even as her heart bled. The truth was something they could never know, something she could never say aloud. That afternoon, after cooking for her stepmother and Safia and scrubbing the courtyard until her hands ached, Amina slipped away to the clinic. She carried a small cloth bag with fruits she had bought secretly with the few coins she saved. Mangoes, bananas, and an orange. The clinic smelled the same, sharp with medicine and soap. Nurses moved about with weary faces. She asked quietly where the stranger had been moved, and they pointed her to a ward at the far end. Her steps quickened. When she entered, she froze. The man was awake. He lay on the bed, propped against thin pillows, his chest wrapped in bandages. His face was pale but striking, his eyes dark and alert. He turned slowly when she came in, and for a moment they simply looked at each other. Amina felt her throat tighten. He was no ordinary man. Even weak, there was something about him, a quiet strength, a dignity in the way he held himself, though his body bore the marks of suffering. You, he whispered, his voice hoarse. You saved me. Amina's lips trembled. She wanted to say, you cost me everything, but instead she forced a small smile. I only did what anyone should do. Not anyone, he said. His gaze was steady, almost searching. Others passed. You stayed. She set the fruits beside his bed, her hands shaking. You need strength. Eat these. For a while they said little more. Amina peeled an orange and handed him the pieces one by one. He ate slowly, his fingers brushing hers once, sending a strange warmth through her chest. She learned his name, Kweku Mensa, though he offered nothing else, no family, no history, and she did not press. When she left that evening, his eyes followed her until she disappeared from sight. Days passed. Amina returned again and again, carrying small things. Bread wrapped in cloth, warm soup in a calabash, clean water from the well. She sat beside him and told him stories of the town, the mischievous boys who stole mangoes, the woman who always argued with her neighbors over goats, the way the market smelled of smoked fish and peppers. Kweku listened, sometimes smiling. Faintly, sometimes closing his eyes as if to imagine it all. Slowly, his strength returned. He began to walk with a cane, though every step was painful. Each time, Amina was there, offering her arm. And in those moments, the bond between them deepened quietly, like roots spreading unseen beneath the earth. But outside the clinic walls, the whispers grew louder. One evening, as Amina left the clinic with an empty calabash, she saw her stepbrother, Idris, waiting near the corner. His tall frame leaned lazily against the wall, his eyes sharp and mocking. So this is where you run to at night, he sneered. The whole town talks about you, and now I see why. You've found yourself a half-dead man to cling to. Amina stiffened, clutching the calabash to her chest. Leave me, Idris. I owe him nothing but kindness. Kindness? Idris laughed, stepping closer. Or something more? Does he pay you in coins? Or in secrets? His gaze lingered on her face, then dropped lower, cruel and knowing. Stepmother says you'll bring shame to us. I think she is right. Anger and shame burned in Amina's chest. She wanted to scream, to tell him he knew nothing, but her voice failed. She pushed past him, walking quickly into the night, her eyes hot with tears. Behind her, Idris's voice rang out. Don't think you can hide him from us. If he wants you, he'll have to go through me. At home, things worsened. Mariam grew harsher, accusing Amina of neglecting chores. Safiya, now fully aware of the town gossip, took every chance to humiliate her. One afternoon, as Amina was grinding peppers, Safiya leaned against the wall, arms folded, lips curled. So tell me, sister, does your sick lover whisper sweet things to you? Or does he simply cough in your face? The mortar slipped in Amina's hands, spilling peppers onto the ground. Her face flushed with shame and fury. But before she could answer, Mariam's voice sliced through the air. Enough of this nonsense. Amina, you will stop visiting him. From today, you will not leave this house at night. If I hear you disobey, I will throw you out. Do you hear me? Amina bowed her head, her heart twisting. Yes, stepmother. But inside, she knew she could not obey. If she abandoned Kweku, who would bring him food? Who would help him walk? She had already given too much to let him die alone now. So that night, when the house was quiet, she slipped out once more, her footsteps soft as feathers, her scarf pulled tight against the cold. The clinic was nearly dark when she arrived, only one lamp burning in the hallway. Kweku was sitting by the window, his cane resting against the wall, the moonlight silver on his face. When he turned and saw her, a faint smile tugged at his lips. You came, he said softly. I had to, Amina whispered. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Kweku spoke again, his voice low. I remember the night you found me. I thought I was gone. I thought the world had decided I was finished. But then I opened my eyes, and you were there. Why? Why would you help a man who is nothing to you? Amina's throat tightened. She wanted to tell him everything, the cruel bargain, the price she had paid. But the words stuck in her chest like thorns. Instead, she said, because no life is nothing, and no man should die alone. Kweku looked at her for a long time, his eyes dark and unreadable. Then he whispered, almost as if to himself, You are the only one who saw me as a man worth saving. Her heart skipped a beat, and though neither of them said more, something passed between them in that quiet room, a promise unspoken, a bond, unbreakable. But outside, in the shadows, Idris watched from a distance, his fists clenched, his eyes burning with envy. A secret name. The rains came early that season. Heavy clouds rolled over Encoranza, drenching the red earth until the streets turned to mud and children splashed barefoot in puddles. Thunder cracked like drums in the sky, and roofs of rusted tin shook beneath the downpour. In her stepmother's house, Amina scrubbed the floor on her knees, the rain dripping through holes in the ceiling. Safiya sat nearby on a cushioned stool, painting her nails with henna, watching Amina with lazy amusement. You are wasting your youth, Safiya said suddenly, stretching her legs, while other girls polish their beauty and charm wealthy. Men, you polish floors. Tell me, do you plan to marry a broom one day? Amina bit her tongue. She had learned long ago that replying only fed Safiya's cruelty. Still, her silence made her stepsister's laughter ring louder in the room. Later, when she carried water to Mariam's chambers, she overheard voices. Her stepmother's sharp tone drifted through the door. The whole town whispers about her. If she brings shame to us, who will marry Safiya? Who will honor this family? A man's voice responded. It was Idris. Don't worry, mother. I am watching her. That man she visits will not stay hidden forever. Amina froze. Her heart pounded as she realized Idris was following her. That evening, she went to the clinic again, carrying warm jollof rice wrapped in plantain leaves. The storm had passed, leaving the night air cool and fragrant with wet earth. When she entered Kweku's ward, she found him seated upright, speaking softly into a small black phone. His voice was low but carried a weight she had never heard before. Firm, commanding, laced with authority. Yes. Tell the board the negotiations will wait. I will return when the time is right. No. Do not use my name publicly. Not yet. Amina froze at the doorway. Her breath caught. She had never seen him with a phone. She had never heard him speak with such power. Kweku turned and saw her. His eyes softened instantly, and he slipped the phone into his pocket. You came, he said, smiling faintly. Amina placed the food on the small table beside him, but her hands trembled. Questions swirled in her mind, sharp and restless. Who was this man really? Why did his voice sound like a leader, not a broken wanderer? She tried to stay calm. You have people waiting for you? His gaze lingered on her face, as though weighing her soul. Then he answered softly. Everyone has people, but not all people are worth returning to. Amina did not press, though curiosity gnawed at her. She told herself it was not her place to pry. Still, in her heart, she began to wonder if the stranger she had saved was carrying a secret larger than either of them. The following week, strange things began to happen. When she went to the market to buy gari, the trader pushed the bag into her hands and waved off her payment. Already covered, he said with a smile. At the tailor's shop, where she had begged for months to repair her torn wrapper, the woman handed her the mended cloth, refusing her coins. Someone paid for you, she explained. At the small school by the mosque, the headmaster called her aside. Your fees are settled for the year, Amina. You may continue your lessons. Amina stood frozen, her heart racing. Who could have done this? She had never spoken of her debts to anyone. Her stepmother certainly would not lift a finger for her. There was only one person who might have known, the man at the clinic. That night she confronted him. Why are you doing this? She demanded, her voice shaking. The food, the school fees, the debts. Was it you? Kweku looked at her quietly. For a long time he said nothing. Then he replied simply, I only gave back what you already gave me. Life. Her chest tightened. She wanted to thank him, to smile, to weep, but instead she whispered, You shouldn't. I am nobody. His eyes hardened suddenly, his voice low. Never say that again. You are more than you know. But in the shadows of the town, Idris's jealousy grew like a snake coiled in the grass. He began following her more boldly, sometimes appearing outside the clinic, sometimes trailing her through the streets. One evening, he cornered her behind the mosque. His breath smelled of palm wine, his face twisted with anger. Tell me the truth, Amina, he growled. Who is he? That man you run to every night? He is not just a beggar. I've seen the way he carries himself. I've seen his eyes. Who is he? I don't know, Amina whispered, her hands clutching her scarf. And it is none of your concern. Idris slammed his fist against the wall, making her flinch. Everything you do is my concern. You are under this roof because of us. If he wants you, he'll have to go through me. And if I find out his secret, you will regret the day you saved him. He stalked away, leaving Amina trembling in the darkness. That night, sleep would not come. Amina tossed on her thin mat, her thoughts spinning. Who was Kweku? His voice on the phone, the money that appeared, the way he carried himself, it was all too much to ignore. Finally, she rose before dawn and went to the old library near the chief's palace, where dusty newspapers piled in corners. She searched through the business pages, flipping through headlines of powerful men and wealthy dynasties. Then her eyes froze on a photograph. It was Kweku, younger, healthier, dressed in a sharp suit. The headline read, "Mensa Holdings sole heir missing after family dispute." Her breath caught. Her hand shook so violently the paper nearly tore. The Mensa family, one of the richest in the nation, known for banks, shipping, and oil. Their name was spoken with awe, even in Nkoranza. And the missing heir was the man lying in that clinic, the man she had saved. She pressed her trembling fingers to her lips, whispering, "Kweku Mensa, you are not who you pretend to be." When she next saw him, her heart beat wildly. She wanted to ask, to shout, to demand the truth. But when she looked into his eyes, those eyes that had once pleaded for help on a muddy street, her anger melted into silence. Kweku sensed it too. He studied her carefully, as though he knew she had discovered a piece of him. But he said nothing, only offered a faint smile and asked, "Will you walk with me tonight?" And so they walked together under the moonlight, side by side, two souls bound by secrets neither dared to speak aloud. Yet in the distance, hidden in the shadows, Idris watched them, a cruel smile curling his lips. He now knew the name written on that hidden paper, and he planned to use it. Enemies in the shadows. The Harmattan winds swept through Nkoranza that month, carrying dust that clung to lips and filled the air with a dry haze. People wrapped cloths around their faces, and the evenings grew colder than usual. Yet for Amina, it was not the dust or the chill that troubled her heart. It was the weight of the secret she now carried. She knew who Kweku truly was. She had read his name in black ink, seen his face in that newspaper. He was not an ordinary man. He was not the forgotten wanderer her town believed. He was Kweku Mensa, the missing heir of Mensa Holdings. A man tied to power, money, and enemies she could not begin to understand. And now, by saving him, she had tied her fate to his. Idris's discovery. In the evenings, Amina still slipped away to see him, her scarf wrapped tight around her head, her footsteps quick. But each time she felt the prickling on her skin, the sense that someone was following. Idris was no longer hiding his suspicion. One night he confronted her again. She had just left the clinic when his tall figure stepped out of the shadows, blocking her path. His eyes glittered with a dangerous light. "I know his name," Idris hissed. "Do you think you can hide it from me? Do you think you can steal such a man for yourself?" Amina's stomach twisted. "Leave me alone, Idris." But he only laughed, low and cruel. "You are a fool, sister. That man is wealth. That man is power. And you—" He leaned close, his voice sharp as a knife. "You are nothing but the servant who washed his wounds. Do you think he will love you when he remembers who he is? No. He belongs to our world, not yours." Amina clenched her fists, but tears burned her eyes. Idris's words sliced deep, because part of her feared they were true. "Stay away from him," she whispered, her voice trembling. Idris's smile widened. "No, I will do the opposite. I will bring him into the light, and when I do, I will make sure he sees your shame." The stepmother's scheme back at home, Mariam and Safiya grew restless. Whispers of Kweku had reached their ears too. Rumors spread that the stranger Amina visited was not just anyone, but a man of hidden means. Mariam's eyes sharpened like those of a hawk. One evening, as Safiya braided her hair in the courtyard, She spoke with venom. If that man is who I think he is, then he will not be wasted on Amina. No, Safia, he will be yours. You will be his wife, and this house will rise in power. Safia giggled, her bangles clinking. And what of Amina? Mariam's lips curled. Amina? She will be nothing more than your shadow. She will watch you shine while she fades. The two women laughed, their voices mingling with the crackling of the lantern, never knowing Amina was standing just beyond the doorway, her hands trembling as she clutched her shawl. Her stepmother's words confirmed her deepest fear. They would never allow her happiness. A public feast it was during the festival of the harvest that matters came to a head. The whole town gathered in the square, drums beating, fires blazing, roasted meat filling the air with thick smoke. Women wore bright cloths, children danced with rattles, and men clapped and sang praises to the gods for the year's crops. Amina had no fine dress, only her plain wrapper. Mariam insisted she attend as Safia's attendant, carrying her sister's food and water like a servant. She bore the humiliation quietly. Her head bowed, though her heart ached. Then came a moment she could not have foreseen. As the drumming slowed, Kweku appeared at the edge of the square. He leaned on his cane but stood tall, his eyes sweeping over the crowd. The people gasped and whispered. Who was this man with the noble bearing, dressed not in rags, but in a clean white tunic that gleamed under the firelight? Mariam's eyes lit with greed. Safia straightened, tossing her braids over her shoulder, smiling brightly, but Kweku's gaze moved past them all. His eyes found Amina in the crowd, her plain scarf, her downcast face, and lit with warmth. Slowly, he walked toward her, his cane tapping the ground. The murmurs grew louder. Mariam stiffened. Safia's smile faltered. When he reached Amina, Kweku spoke loudly, his voice carrying over the drums. This woman, he said, taking her trembling hand, is the reason I stand here alive tonight. When the world abandoned me, she did not. When I was nothing, she gave me everything. I will not allow her to be mocked or cast aside. The square erupted with gasps. Women covered their mouths. Men exchanged wide-eyed glances. Amina's stepfamily froze in fury and shock. Safia's face twisted in disbelief. Mariam's hands clenched so tightly her rings bit into her skin. Idris, watching from the shadows, narrowed his eyes, rage flashing across his face, and in that moment, the gossip of the town turned from mockery to awe. Amina's secret unravels. But joy never lasted long for Amina. That very night, after the Abdiu festival ended, Idris struck. He had followed her to the clinic days earlier and had found the hidden hospital records, the ones that revealed the price she had paid to save Kweku's life. The paper was yellow under the lantern light as he held it, grinning with triumph. Your secret is mine now, Idris whispered. The world will know what you gave away for him, and when it does, he will despise you. Amina's blood ran, cold. She grabbed the paper, but Idris pulled it back, laughing. You thought you were clever, little sister. But you are nothing. Tomorrow he will see the truth. And when he does, he will turn from you to us. His laughter echoed through the courtyard as Amina sank to her knees, her heart shattering. Kweku's confession. That same night, before Idris could act, Kweku called Amina to the courtyard of the clinic. The moon was high, the wind stirring the neem trees. His face was grave, his voice steady. I can no longer hide from you, he said. I am Kweku Mensa, heir of Mensa Holdings. I left my world because of betrayal. Because the people I trusted most tried to destroy me. I thought if I disappeared, I could find peace. But instead, I nearly died. Until you found me. Amina's breath caught. She had expected it, but hearing, the words aloud shook her soul. I tell you this, Kweku continued, because I cannot walk this path alone anymore. And because I trust you. Tears filled her eyes. She wanted to tell him the truth in return, the cruel bargain she had made, the shame that haunted her, but her lips trembled, her voice failing. Before she could speak, he took her hand gently. Whatever my name means, whatever power it carries, it means nothing without you. You are the one who gave me life again. Amina's heart ached with love and fear. She pressed his hand tightly, whispering, "And you are the only one who saw me, not as dirt, but as a person worth saving." But as they embraced, Idris watched from the shadows, clutching the hospital paper with a wicked grin. Tomorrow, he would strike. The breaking storm. The days after the harvest festival were not like any other in Encoranza. The whole town buzzed with whispers, their words carried like sparks through dry grass. Everywhere Amina went, she felt eyes on her. Did you see? The stranger? He chose her. They say he is rich, more than any man in this town. Amina Diallo, the girl who washes floors? Impossible. At the well, women's voices grew sharp with envy. At the market, traders looked at her with curiosity. Even children chanted songs about her name. But in her stepmother's house, the air turned poisonous. Mariam's anger burned hotter with every whisper she heard. She slammed pots, scolded servants, and rained insults upon Amina at every chance. "Ungrateful girl," she spat one morning. "You think you are better than my daughter? You are nothing but dirt. Dirt that luck has lifted for a moment. But dirt will return to dirt." Safia's fury was worse. She no longer mocked with laughter. Now she stared at Amina with cold hatred, her words like knives. "He will see you for what you are," she hissed. "And when he does, he will come to me. He will never stay with a beggar." Amina swallowed her pain, keeping silent. She had learned to endure cruelty, but deep inside a storm was building, the invitation. Not long after, word spread that Kweku, Mensa, now no longer the nameless stranger, was to host a great gathering in the city, a banquet where he would reveal himself fully, not as the broken man who had once lain near death, but as the heir of Mensa Holdings. The town shook with excitement. For many, it was a chance to witness power, to taste wealth. For Mariam and Safia, it was a golden opportunity. "This is it, Safia," Mariam whispered as she dressed her daughter in bright silk. "He will announce his bride, and you will shine before him." Amina was forced to follow, dressed plainly, carrying her stepsister's shawl. She wanted to refuse, but Mariam's hand was heavy, her threats sharp. So she obeyed, though her heart trembled. The banquet. The city lights dazzled, like 1,000 stars. The hall of the banquet was grand, its marble floors shining, its chandeliers glittering with crystals. Music filled the air, and powerful men and women in fine clothes gathered with glasses of wine. Amina kept her head low, ashamed of her plain wrapper, clutching Safia's shawl like a servant. Her eyes searched the crowd until they found him. Kweku stood at the center, tall and strong, dressed in a dark suit that made him look every bit the heir he truly was. His cane was gone. He walked firmly now, as though his strength had fully returned. Beside him stood businessmen, leaders, and dignitaries, all eager for his attention. When his gaze swept over the room, it stopped on Amina. His eyes softened instantly. He began to walk toward her. Mariam and Safia froze in disbelief. And then, before the eyes of the entire hall, Kweku reached Amina, took her trembling hand, and spoke loudly. "This is the woman I love. This is the woman who saved my life when all others passed me by. Tonight, I declare before all of you, Amina Diallo will be my wife." The room gasped. Some clapped in awe, others whispered in shock. Mariam's face turned pale. Safia's hands shook with rage, but none of their fury matched the fire in Idris's eyes. The exposure later that night, as the hall quieted and the music faded, a loud voice cut through the air. Idris stepped forward, his smile sharp as a blade, a paper clutched in his hand. "Wait!" he shouted, his voice echoing across the hall. "Do not be fooled by this girl's sweet face. Do you want to know who she really is?" The crowd turned. Murmurs spread like ripples. Amina's heart stopped. She knew what was coming. Idris held up the paper, the hospital record. His voice dripped with poison. "This is what she gave to save you. Not her time, not her prayers. No, she sold herself. She traded her body for your life. This girl is no savior. She is nothing but a woman of shame." Gasps erupted from the crowd. Women covered their mouths, men muttered in disgust. Eyes turned to Amina, wide with judgment. Amina's knees went weak. Tears filled her eyes as her shame burned like fire on her skin. She wanted to run, to hide, but her feet were frozen. Kweku turned to her, his face pale with shock. "Is it true?" he whispered, his voice trembling. Amina's lips quivered. She had hidden it for so long, hoping never to speak it aloud. But the truth clawed at her throat. "Yes," she whispered, her voice breaking. "It is true." The room fell. Silent Kweku staggered back, pain flashing in his eyes. His love, his trust, clashed with the wound of betrayal. He pressed his hand to his forehead, whispering, "Why didn't you tell me? Why would you carry this alone?" "I was afraid," Amina sobbed. "Afraid you would see me as ruined. Afraid you would leave." Her words echoed, but Kweku's face was unreadable. The crowd murmured louder now, their voices sharp. "Shameful girl. She tricked him. She is not worthy." Mariam and Safiya smirked from the side, satisfied. Idris grinned triumphantly, his plan complete, and Amina stood in the center of it all, broken, her secret now a weapon turned against her. The fall that night, Kweku disappeared from her side. He did not walk her home, did not speak another word. Amina returned alone, her heart heavier than stone. In the house, Mariam greeted her with mockery. "So this is the girl who thought she could be queen? Fool, the world knows your shame now. And he will never want you again." Safiya laughed coldly. "Better prepare yourself, sister. Tomorrow, he will choose me." Amina ran to her small room, collapsed on her mat, and wept until her body ached. For the first time since her father's death, she felt utterly alone. The man she loved, the only one who had ever seen her worth, now looked at her with doubt, and Idris's words echoed in her ears. "He will hate you, and then you will belong to me." He trial of truth. The night after the banquet was the darkest Amina had ever known. She sat alone on her mat, the walls of her small room pressing in like a prison. Every whisper of the town, every mocking laugh of her stepmother, every venomous word from Idris echoed in her mind. The shame clung to her like a second skin. But as dawn crept over the horizon, painting the sky with soft pink light, something inside her shifted. She had cried all the tears her body could give. Now, only resolve remained. She would not let Idris define her story. She would not let her sacrifice become a chain, she whispered to herself. "If they must know the truth, then I will tell it with my own mouth. And I will not bow my head." The summons, 2 days later, the city buzzed with news. Idris had gone to the authorities, waving the hospital papers, accusing Amina of deceit and sin. The matter had grown too large for gossip. It was dragged into the public court. The hall of judgment was crowded, filled with townspeople, traders, and strangers who had traveled just to see the scandal of the poor girl who trapped the heir. Murmurs filled the air like buzzing bees. On one side stood Idris, his fine robe gleaming, his smirk proud. Beside him, Mariam and Sophia sat with satisfied faces. On the other side, trembling but unbroken, stood Amina, her simple wrapper clean, her scarf tied firmly, and before them, at the center, sat the council of elders, their eyes grave. Kweku sat among the audience, his face pale, his gaze fixed on Amina. His heart was torn between anger and longing. Idris's accusation. The court opened with Idris's booming voice. He strutted before the elders like a cock in the yard, waving the crumpled paper. "My lords, here is the truth. This girl, Amina Diallo, pretends to be pure. She claims she saved our noble heir out of kindness. But look here," he slapped the paper. "She sold herself to the doctor for his surgery. She is a woman of shame, unworthy of honor, unworthy of marriage, unworthy of this town's respect." Gasps erupted. Women shook their heads, men whispered curses. Sophia smiled sweetly. Mariam nodded proudly. Idris turned to Amina, his voice dripping with triumph. "Tell them it is not true. If you dare, deny it, and I will prove you a liar. Admit it, and all will know what you are." The hall grew silent. All eyes turned to Amina. Amina's truth, her hands shook, but she stepped forward. Her voice trembled at first, but then grew strong, carried by something greater than fear. "Yes," she said clearly. "It is true." The hall erupted in gasps. Idris grinned like a wolf, but Amina lifted her chin and continued, her voice cutting through the noise. "It is true that I gave up what no woman should ever be forced to give. It is true that the doctor demanded a price too cruel. And it is true that I paid it, because a man was dying before my eyes and no one else would save him. The shame is not mine. The shame belongs to the man who exploited me. The shame belongs to those who walked past while another human being lay dying. The shame belongs to Idris, who now tries to use my pain for his own gain." Her words rang like a bell. The crowd fell silent. Tears burned in her eyes, but she did not stop. "I will not bow my head. I will not let my sacrifice be turned into filth. If you think me ruined, so be it. But I say to you, my worth is not measured by the cruelty of others. My worth is in the life I saved and the love I carry still." The hall shook with murmurs. Some wept openly. Others nodded in agreement. The elders whispered among themselves. Idris's smile faltered. The turning tide, one of the elders rose, his staff striking the ground. "Bring the doctor forward." The cruel man was dragged in, his face pale with fear. At first he denied, but under questioning, under the weight of Amina's truth and the whispers of the crowd, his mask cracked. At last, he confessed, his voice bitter. "Yes, I demanded it. I knew she was desperate. I thought no one would ever know." The hall erupted in outrage. Women shouted, men cursed. The elders banged their staffs until silence returned. The elder's voice thundered, "Then it is you who are guilty, not she. Her act was sacrifice, yours was corruption, and Idris." He turned his fierce gaze to the stepbrother. "You who use this pain to destroy her, you are no better. Your schemes are poison. This council will not tolerate it." Idris's face darkened with rage, his fists clenching, but the crowd had turned. Where once they had whispered against Amina, now they looked at her with awe. Kweku's choice. In the silence that followed, Kweku rose from his seat. His steps echoed as he walked slowly to the center, his eyes never leaving Amina's tear-streaked face. He stopped before her, his voice trembling with emotion. "Amina, forgive me. Forgive my doubt. I let fear blind me when I should have seen. Your courage. You gave everything for me. You endured shame so that I could live, and in truth there is no one more worthy than you. Today, I declare it not as a man of wealth, not as an heir, but as the one whose life is bound to yours. I choose you, always." The hall broke into applause. Women ululated, men clapped, children cheered. The sound rose like thunder. Mariam and Safiya sat frozen, their dreams of power shattered. Idris stormed from the hall, his face twisted with fury. But no one followed him. Amina wept. But these were no longer tears of shame. They were tears of release, of joy, of love redeemed. A new dawn weeks later, the wedding took place. It was not held in a glittering hall of the city, but in the heart of Encarranza, where it all began. The poor and rich alike gathered in the marketplace, drums beating, women dancing, children tossing flowers in the air. Amina wore a simple white cloth, her beauty glowing brighter than any jewel. Kweku stood beside her, proud and tall, his hand clasped in hers. The vows were spoken beneath the old baobab tree where Amina's father slept. She whispered in her heart, "I kept your teaching, Father. Kindness was never weakness. It was strength." When they were declared husband and wife, the crowd erupted with joy. Drummers beat louder, dancers twirled faster, and laughter filled the sky. And as the sun set over Encarranza, Amina and Kweku walked hand in hand through the marketplace, no longer beggar and servant, no longer stranger and rescuer, but equals, partners, a symbol of love born from sacrifice. The storm had passed, the truth had prevailed, and their love, forged in suffering, now stood unbreakable.